Successfully, I'm Jenna Wolf. This is Nick Wright. Chris Caney's in for us for the next 3 hours. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning, Jenna. Got Purple Friday going on.
I see.
For my Ravens. Big trust.
I see.
Let's
big
go.
Trust. Never quite understood it, but I like it.
Quarterback in the show.
Absolutely right. Well done, Canty.
That was really well said. I'd like to sit on that for a little while, but instead, we will talk about Nick's favorite weekend in sports.
The best weekend in sports. And this year, it's kind of a 3-day experience because Monday night's national championship game in college football.
Oh,
the best 2 days in sports is NFL divisional weekend. Your 8 best teams-ish in football playing. Cannot wait.
It genuinely makes me happy to see
It's
that
the
happy.
best weekend in sports.
I like it. All right, divisional round matchups to preview and predict, and we are going to start things off in Green Bay this morning. Here we go. Russell Wilson and the Seahawks taking on Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers Sunday night on Fox. Russ led his team to a league-best 7-1 record on the road. But the Seahawks all-everything quarterback has never won at Lambeau. Pair that with the fact that the Pack only lost 1 game there this season. We can pretty much call it an uphill battle for Seattle. So, Nick, we'll start with you. It's a simple question. Who wins this game?
The Green Bay Packers are the better team. They're the healthier team. They're the more well-rested team. And they're at home. For all those reasons, to me, even though they are the smallest of the favorites this week and everyone else at least a touchdown or more, Green Bay right around 3.5 to 4, depending on where you get it, I would be very surprised if Seattle wins this game. I've got Green Bay. That is not just due to my commitment to take integrity of the Green Bay Packers making it to the Super Bowl, which you and I both had prior to the year, and that pick will be tested mightily if both the favorites win this weekend and Green Bay has a rematch against San Francisco. But Seattle has overachieved this year. Seattle has been brilliant in one-score games. Russell Wilson has repeatedly pulled magic out of his helmet, and I think that is something, by the way, he can continue to do. He has done it over the course of the decade, or a little less than a decade he's been in the league, but I think their season ends here. I think they're too banged up. Dwayne Brown and George Fant didn't practice yesterday. Neither did Mike Iupati. So you have 3 offensive linemen who were not able to practice on a Thursday, getting ready for a Sunday game. Now they're fortunate they're not playing a Saturday game, or else it'd be even more dire straits for them in that regard. Green Bay also has been doing just enough throughout this season to win football games. They haven't been overly impressive. We haven't seen a vintage Aaron Rodgers game in a few months. I wonder if we see it this weekend against the Seahawks defense that in every metric other than turnovers forced is a bottom 10 defense in the league. And if one thing Green Bay does really well, Aaron Rodgers in particular, is they do not turn the ball over. So, Canty, for all those reasons, I like the Packers this weekend. I think it'll be a good game. I think it'll potentially be a high-scoring game because I don't know about the defenses of either of these two teams, but I like the Packers to win this football game.
Yeah, I like the Packers, too. I mean, when you look at the Seahawks and Russell Wilson in particular, Lambeau Field has been a house of horrors for him. Yep. He's 0-3. He's got 6 interceptions to 3 touchdowns and a 60 passer rating, so it doesn't necessarily lend itself to him having his best performance, even though the Seahawks team is 8-1 on the road this season. I look at this Green Bay Packers defense, and they do have the ability to get after the quarterback. Preston Smith, Zadarius Smith, the free agents that they signed this offseason, those guys combined for 25.5 sacks. So I like this I like the Green Bay Packers being able to take advantage of the matchups that they're going to have with that Seattle Seahawks offensive line. You mentioned the injuries that they're dealing with. It's not an offensive line that was great at being able to keep the quarterback clean as well. They're in the top 10 in terms of hits allowed on the quarterback. So I think it comes down to Russell Wilson's ability to improvise, and we saw that in that game against Philadelphia. If he can extend the plays and he can do enough to allow those receivers time to uncover downfield, I think that's where Seattle actually has a chance. But I'm with Nick on this one. I think that Seattle has been on borrowed time. If you look at their point differential throughout the season, it's one of the smallest for a team that made the playoffs this year. And so it just feels like it's inevitable that they're going to get knocked out.
That point differential number is historically slim for a team to win 11 games. So by the end of the year, their point differential was in single digits. They had the point differential of a 7 or 8 win team. They ended up winning 11 games and then a playoff game, another single-digit victory in the playoff game despite going up against a backup quarterback. And Seattle's defense, twice this year, they held the Eagles to 9 points. Every other week, they are allowing 20-plus points to almost anyone they face. So I just don't think Seattle has the the health or the full personnel on defense, as great as Clowney is, in order to slow down a balanced Packers attack. Now, Rodgers has to be better than he's been the second half of the year, but the Packers also don't have to have Aaron Rodgers on a play-by-play basis be brilliant, because Aaron Jones throughout the season has been such a reliable running back.
That being said, even though he does have Aaron Jones, how much of this game is going to come back down to the magic that Russell Wilson's going to have to do, and essentially the magic that Aaron Rodgers is going to have to do to win this game, which he really hasn't had to do, like Nick said, all season long.
He hasn't had to do it all season long, but it's not like we don't know that Aaron Rodgers can do it, and I think that's.
Do we know he still can do it?
No, I think he can still extend plays, and I think it sets up well for him this matchup, because the Seattle Seahawks defense has the 5th lowest pressure rate of any team in the National Football League this year, and the 2nd lowest of any playoff team. The Houston Texans are the worst in the playoff field. But in looking at it, yeah, I think Aaron Rodgers will have the ability to be able to extend the plays if he needs to. And when you look at the matchup that these Seahawks defensive backs have against the wide receivers for the Packers, I mean, the Seahawks, their defense is not one of the best defenses when you talk about tackling on the back end. They have the 4th most missed tackles in the National Football League, and the Green Bay Packers have the 5th most broken tackles after catches. So yards after catch is going to be a big factor. There are 8 teams in the National Football League that have 2,000 yards after catch, and the Green Bay Packers are one of them. So that's one thing to watch. When you consider the potential for a sloppy field with inclement weather, you would think that it lends itself to the Green Bay Packers and Aaron Rodgers being able to run that scramble drill and hit some big plays in the passing game.
And one thing we know, Seattle's going to run the football whether it is effective or not. That is not just this year. That is not just last year. That is the entirety of their history. You look at their last 6 playoff games. They had a monster rushing game in the wild card game against Detroit a few years ago when they hit 34 for 174. Here are the other rushing performances they've had. 22 for 72, 8 for 29, 14 for 51, 21 for 59, and last week, the pièce de résistance, 17 for 19, including a 12-yard run mixed in there, which means the other 16 carries went for a total of 7 yards, pardon me, for the entirety of the game. Green Bay does not have a good rush defense. My pal Kenny Clark needs to play better, and he's been banged up, assuming he can go. Seattle's going to run the football. I think Green Bay will welcome them running the football. Even though Detroit ran all over them the last time we saw Green Bay play before the bye, I think they will say the more often you take the ball out of Russell Wilson's hands, the happier we are. The more often you say, we're not going to try to get a first down on 1st or 2nd down, we're happy with a 3rd and 5 and see what happens, I think Green Bay will take it, and I think that will help Green Bay in order to stay in control of this football game. And
that run game for Seattle probably is safer if there is inclement weather that they are calling for, I'm sure, right, this weekend. All right, for Aaron Rodgers, his first postseason performance in 3 years. So much more to come on this game. But on the other side, can Patrick Mahomes get revenge for the Chiefs' early season loss to the Texans? I bet Nick says yes.